That sounds really, really official.
I,
Click that button.
We are live, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So we are here at 12 o'clock. It's a special meeting, video meeting with our state representative, Milan Tai. And so first of all, I want to thank Representative Tai for coming and talking with members of the council. I just wanted to do a quick round. So we have Councilmember Lisa Anderl, Councilmember Craig Reynolds, and we also have City Manager Jesse Vaughn, and we have our Chief of Operations, Jason Kittner. And so again, I want to thank you for sharing some time. I know you're busy and the legislative session begins just around the corner. So again, appreciate the time here. I just wanted to, well, first of all, I assume Representative Tai, you're on mute. So, but I assume that you did receive a copy of the city's 2022 legislative agenda.
Let me double check before I say, yes, I have received.
Okay. Well, oh, okay.
And I open it up right now so I can follow
Okay.
as we
All
talk.
right. Okay, fair enough. I know you probably get a lot of emails. Well, if you do have it on your screen or on your phone, I think, you know, given that we only have 30 minutes, I just really wanted to go focus, at least initially, on probably one of the top priorities that the city has, and that's item number 3, which is the clarification to the 2021 police reforms that the state legislature enacted. And, you know, I know that our police chief has shared some of his concerns about those police reforms and the need for clarification. And I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over, at least maybe to our city manager, because I know she's had greater conversations with Police Chief Ed Holmes. And so I just want to maybe have her highlight some of the concerns, specific concerns that we have as council.
well, and Mayor Wong, given the limited time here, Representative Tai, in the legislative priorities we sent, I think you have, we appended the Association of Washington City Police Reform. Yeah. So we're aligned with Association of Washington Cities. And I know because we're already talking with AWC that there is a group working on these legislative reforms. So what I wanted to share is Police Chief Ed Holmes, who is not here today, is a resource to you as you work through these, you know, potential reforms. And we're happy to talk and test drive potential amendments, you know, think about how they work in practice. So whatever resource we can be in that regard. Otherwise, I would just refer you to the Association of Cities, Washington Cities document for some specifics. And, you know, what I have shared in my conversations with the lobbyists at AWC is just, you know, when our officers are in the field and they're responding, we need to make sure the tools they have are easy to understand and very clear, because they're oftentimes making decisions quickly. Obviously, we want them to be safe and, you know, make good decisions. But when tools are complicated and some of the reforms we don't fully understand, it makes our implementation job a little bit harder. So that's, and you're well aware of this, right? Because I know there's been briefings and lots of conversations about that, but maybe you can share anything you know, how we can help you with this work, what you need from us in the upcoming session.
Yes, thank you for that. And if we stay in that space for maybe a short time, I hear what you're saying, and I think, and I don't want to lighten it in any shape or form, but I just simply wanted to speak to the area that I know a whole lot more than police. And so, number one, I do not know a whole lot about police, and so I depend heavily on the input and contribution from the police force. And so, first and foremost, the conversation out there that the state legislature did all this stuff without the input of police at the state level is misinformation, just to put it out there. we work heavily with police at the state level and those who wanted to be in that conversation. And certainly what we've learned is that the direct line of communication is not always a straight line. It's rather loopy and curvy. Hence, here we are. Number two, the space where I know most is really in school. So for any time a school adopt a new curriculum, whether it's math or language art or even music, it will take time to really train their teacher to really pull everybody up to the either a new standards or a new directions. And I think for a whole bunch of legislation that passed last sessions, a lot of it really speak to very specifically the standards or either restructure the standards, update the standards, changing standards. And when those standards are changed, certainly the people who would uphold or implement these standards would need to take that kind of time to fully understand it and really administer them. And so what I hear you very clearly, Jesse, is that county, city, state included, honestly, because the state is an employer for police. The trooper is one of them, to need that time to really update and get everybody on board as far as understanding what the new standards, what's the shift of our practice now will look like, right? And really the other point that I wanted to really get across is that for us, the small group of legislators who are working on these policies, continuously our intent is to provide public safety for the public. And the reason why we have to shift standards is because our previous standards did not seem to provide the public safety for each and every members of our public. It does for some, but not for all. So we need to really look back at our policy and say, is this working for all? And if it's not, we need to make the change. I mean, it's similar to your important work at the city level. And so I want to also take this opportunity to thank you, Mayor Benson Wong, for his years of services as a council member, and to thank every single city council members in Mercer Island for your services as well. Our work is critically important, and I think we certainly have a common interest, which is provide the best services possible for each and every members of our constituents.
I just want to, again, Representative Tai, obviously you represent Mercer Island down in state legislature. And so we appreciate that. And again, appreciate this opportunity. And again, speak on behalf of the council members who are, I'm sure, may have some questions for you specifically. But we wanted to share our concerns. And, again, I know some of these areas may not be in your area of expertise, but I think they're important to be shared with you so that when you go down to Olympia, as the city manager just mentioned, we are here to help provide back information, support, whatever you might need or your staff might need to further the interests that we have as a city. So Councilmember Anderall or Councilmember Reynolds, we have a list of 7 items on our legislative priorities. I don't know if there's any one that you might want to highlight for the state representative. Councilmember Anderall?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for being with us today, Representative. I don't think public safety has been advanced with the police reform, honestly. And I don't think we need time to get up to speed on what the new laws mean. I mean, I think everybody understands very well the difference between being able to stop somebody on a reasonable suspicion and being able to stop somebody only on probable cause. We have heard anecdotally a lot of violent and nonviolent crimes go unpursued now because the police are fearful of repercussions, but for not adhering to the stricter standards. We see a rise in violent crime in Seattle and in King County. We see a rise in shoplifting. I understand the concerns about disparate policing for different racial or ethnic groups and different outcomes for certain people. But I feel very strongly, and I think our constituency feels generally very strongly that these new regulations have gone too far. And I mean, this is a cliche, I know you've heard it before, but the police are now being handcuffed, not the criminals. And so I really hope if you didn't mean to do that, I hope the legislature will take another look at this year and make things more clear and honestly easier for police to pursue, because not only does that take criminals off the street, criminals know that if they are going to be pursued and prosecuted, it is a deterrent to the criminal acts in the first place. And I just was reelected to the council. One of my major campaign planks was public safety and a strong police force. You can't have a strong police force if you take away their tools of enforcement. And honestly, Mercer Island police are not bad actors. There were never any problems here. And yet their ability to do what they had been doing so effectively and so fairly and so compassionately has been curtailed. So I feel super strongly about this, and I want to deliver that message strongly for the constituents. I don't know if you have any reaction to that, but I'd appreciate your thoughts on whether you think the legislature can take a look at giving some latitude back to the police to let them do their jobs in a fair, effective, and compassionate way.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much, Council Member. I share a lot of agreement with the statement you've just made, and I think here's the differences. I think the differences is that once again, I had the opportunity to serve at the local government level via the school board director, right? We at the local level have capacity to really look at ways to support sort of our local level policies. And I will be first and foremost has been loud and clear that our police officers in Mercer Island, in Bellevue, Chief Milet has been absolutely outstanding as a chief police, really advancing the concept of policing, providing public safety with compassion. I have chat with chief from Sammamish, the city of Sammamish, city of Issaquah. Newcastle is contracting with King County as a whole. I believe that our police are doing their due diligence and their job according to what put in front of them. And I agree with you that our tools that provided to our police who doing their job need to be what they ask for and what they need, because they are the people who are on the ground doing that work, right? It's easy for me to say, oh my goodness, these are the tools you need, and this is all we want to give you, when I'm not the one who on the ground doing the work. And I would fairly say that, including me and Mayor Wong, because the only thing I know is Mayor Wong. I know Mayor Wong's professions, and I know my profession, so I can safely say the two of us would probably be the last people who say we know what tool police need. Police will be the one who knows what tool they need, right? And so the conversation back and forth is critically important. And then the people who are being impacted, certainly your constituents who are also my constituents, and those voices need to be heard. And as your job, we need to balance those voices. Which voice have more of our time and more of our ears versus which voice are lacking. And so I hope that we are at least in that agreement that we want to ensure that the voices or those who wanted to contribute their experience, both from the police officers and the constituent, that our officers and our office providing public safety to, being heard.
Thank you. Councilman Reynolds, do you have anything at this? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak briefly about item 7 on our list, the modernization of the OPMA. I think it's long overdue, and the COVID situation has made it very clear that it's overdue. Technology has changed, the world has changed. And frankly, for us to try to meet in person in a way that allows the public to attend probably endangers public safety. And the ad hoc solutions we've had coming from the governor are helpful, but it's time for a permanent solution. So I hope we can count on you to support that.
You have my support. The legislature themselves was having such crazy run in this past session, right, 2021. And we are really aware, not only is it about public safety and as far as health is concerned, we have seen the significant increase in public engagement. And I think that is certainly another point in conversation that, as we're looking at the modernizing of open public meetings. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Okay. I'd also like to, if I can sneak in one more, talk about number 6 on preserving and protecting the environment. We've seen a number of cities around the region changing their policies to allow mandatory electric heating in commercial and multifamily buildings. But that's not a requirement that we're currently allowed to impose on residential construction, from my viewpoint. That's an example of the sort of flexibility I'd like to see the state give to local areas so that we can act even if the state is not willing to. Even better.
I love that last sentence. I do.
Sorry.
No. I mean, it's really fascinating to have a constituent who I still remember in 2020 when we still were in person. A constituent came and literally like pulled me out and say, how dare you, like when will your house be like a zero energy, like how dare you make us? And I'm kind of like, could you please tell me exactly what are you talking about? Instead of like just come right in front of my face and like saying like how dare you. I'm like, can you give more context? But I hear you, council member, and I appreciate the willingness to take on some of these hard work and really deliberate the conversations. Certainly, you have that commitment. If the state is too chicken to do the hard work, we will certainly pass it on to you guys to give a crack at some of these important climate protection.
Yeah, I think, at least speaking for myself, and this relates back to issue number 1 as well, is the idea of local decision-making authority, having it be as broad as it can be is very helpful. I recognize that the state has, disparate political views across the state that can make movement on big issues challenging sometimes, but movement locally might be possible.
And just to tag on to Councilmember Reynolds, I think Representative Tai, I mean, you can get a lot of background information regarding this particular issue from the folks at K4C from the King County. There is a strong desire for the state to change the building code, which basically governs the construction of residential housing. So again, as Councilmember Reynolds has pointed out, a number of cities are taking advantage of the flexibility that is provided in connection with commercial office space, would like the same thing relative to residential. So please take a look at that, possible changes to the building code. Councilmember Andrew.
Yeah, thanks again. Since we only have a couple of minutes left, Representative Tai, I also believe that local decision-making authority is critical. It's our number 1 priority on the legislative priorities list. I personally probably am not going to agree with what Councilmember Reynolds wants to do, but I think we should have the right at the local level to decide that. And that goes for bigger land use issues as well, such as density and other things. My recollection is that last legislative session, you supported a statewide mandate for increased density around transit. And I am wondering if you're going to advance such an agenda again. I know that the people on Mercer Island do not want that.
Yes, and I think it's going back to like our conversation a little bit earlier, is that that local piece, and I'm a little bit struggle in that I know that even at the state level, there's a lot of us really coming from local government at one point in our service life, and I feel there is definitely energy as far as protecting local decision-making authority, and not only protecting, but respect. When speaking to that very specific legislation, it's going back to the whole back and forth. And I think that that is the beauty of the check and balance in government, at least for our country, is that we create this push and pull, right? As far as density, some of the cities come and told us that, you know, we're trying to do it at local, but the NIMBYs would showed up at, and then we couldn't move or change when we knew that homelessness is a problem, that the number, like the number of housings available, especially affordable housing, depend on however we want to define affordable housing, is not available for us to really look at that issue squarely. And so because we couldn't do it at local, could you state, please do something about it? And we didn't like really react right away. We waited and waited until we have sort of like enough of a mass support, because as you know, I stated again that at the state level, not only protect but respect local authority. And you know that that piece of legislation, it was not just introduced last session, it's introduced multiple times. And the reason why it still couldn't pass simply because once again, we hear the local city elected members. So for me, I wanted to state it like really clearly, even though I'm elected to represent multiple constituents as far at the state level, I see you and I, with the power of the people that have elected us, we are equal. And that your job, in my eyes, is even more important than mine, because mine is that much removed from the people, that's a lot of these policies will be impacted. And so I depend on your conversations and your recommendations. However, this is one of those issues that certainly have a lot of nuance in that space. And so I just want to share what I've learned at the state level. We didn't like willy-nilly feeling like, oh, we feel like we wanted to be Superman and making these changes so that if we can solve homelessness. It's not. A lot of it is risen from local elected who basically say we couldn't do it at local level, state, could you do it? So just wanted to share that piece of information out there. Like many of the issues, right, the tough issue, we don't always agree, but the question is, how do we continue this kind of conversations? So hopefully at some point we can move to a place where that common interest for our constituent is being provided.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. And well, I think it's an interesting conversation, but what I hear you saying is that local electeds came to you and said, we can't do it at the local level. And what that means to me is because at the local level, the majority of their constituents did not want it. So do you agree that in any given incorporated city or town, that the citizens of that town or city should be making land use decisions that impact their neighborhoods?
Certainly, because that is your authority, right? I mean, from what I know is that running for city council, that is your thing. Your thing is about right zonings, about land use, and all of that. So at this stage, the most we can do is creating the kind of overarching policy, and still in the end, it's really how the local city and county would apply those policy to their decision making.
But yet the state still was willing to mandate things for every single citizen, every single city and town, such as, you know, no limitations on the number of unrelated people who can cohabit. And so that took the local control away from the cities. So how do you reconcile your support of that with your supposed support of local control?
By listening to you right now, it's really how I reconcile between my support of what being proposed at the state level and really your struggles of doing what's right for your constituents. Because believe me, our job is about influencing each other.
Yeah. Maybe this discussion can continue offline. I guess I just wanted to, I know your time is, or time with you is almost up, and I want to at least perhaps have the chief of operations perhaps weigh in a little bit. One of the items that we have listed here, Representative Tai, is item number 4. And a number of these items I think are tied to this local issue, but also, there's a strong need that we have perceived and identified for full funding, for public works, for infrastructure, and providing us flexibility in terms of financing. I think removing the restrictions on the REIT revenue, trying to obviously replace the annual 1% property tax cap. Jason Kintner, is there anything else that you might want to, again, given the limited time we have right now, to highlight some of these issues? I mean,
Mayor Wong, maybe I'll tap in and Jason can asterisk any of my comments. I will just mention in the short time we have, Representative Tai, that infrastructure needs are great on the city of Mercer Island. We're a full service city. We manage a water and sewer utility. We manage a modest but important transportation system and a really, robust park system. So I will ask you to keep that in mind, particularly as federal funding for infrastructure is I guess transmitted to the state, that you keep local government in mind. We have a list of projects that probably extends out 20 or 30 years, and anything we can do to have opportunities for, using the Public Works Trust Fund or grants, it's really, really critical.
thank you, City Manager. I guess one thing I would like to hear from you, given within the time frame that we have, Representative Tai, is it is a short session. And so do you get a sense of what is being pushed down in Olympia right now in terms of, obviously there's a great deal of focus on climate change last session, but what's going on this year or next year, I guess?
Yeah, so this session is mental health and workforce. You probably is going to see, well, Representative San is certainly pushing in the youth mental health and find different way to ensure that our public school is being funded. We are also working on the overarching of looking at mental health for a continuum. So it's not just our student in schools, but really like our workforce, specifically providing the services and the support for people who are frontline. The whole conversation about people are experiencing trauma during the pandemic and the crisis is real, and so we wanted to find a way that would match not only providing the services, but the people who are highly qualified, and how do we build the capacity to speed up the process of workforce development, right? And somehow those two has to match together. My conversation with King County, and the reason why I brought up King County is Jesse on that very number 4 piece. I'm hoping that you share that with King County as well, because we're looking at the way, specifically when it comes to the infrastructure. From my understanding, being brief, the majority of the funding coming from the Fed via infrastructure, interestingly, is going to be at local, and a lot of it's going to be grants. What coming to the state is smaller than, and so whatever I can do in supportive of our CDs within the 41st with King County, please do let me know, because I think King County is going to push out for quite a bit number of grants. And especially a few projects that's really shovel ready when it's come to infrastructure. in that space. The state is gonna do what our best as far as looking at sort of like the entire region. Certainly 405 and the upkeep of the movement of 405 into I-90 is still in conversation. But Mayor Wong, the big conversation for 2022 is going to be mental health, the well-being of our people, and workforce development.
And I assume tied to that will be state funding for those services.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. And so what we're trying to do is like tease out what is the one-time dollars and how we use this one-time dollars to build the foundation, right? I mean, because the reality is public health and mental health has been eroded for so long. It's not something that we can magically make it happen overnight, but it's really critical to use this one-time money to build that strong foundation so that when the 988 system coming in, right, it's not so much having a line for people to call in. We want to make sure that there's a whole load of people on the back end providing the services timely, appropriately. And so those are the piece we trying to figure out how to tease all of that out, where the funding go for foundational building and where the funding from the state, which is more of a sustainability as we're looking at the next 5 to 10 years, because we have data showing that the whole drama that every single one of us, those who are on this Zoom and those who are not on this Zoom, are experiencing. Doesn't matter how well we masked it, really.
And lastly, I guess, Representative Tai, you may already know this, but we have a very robust, active Youth and Family Services Department within the city that provides counseling services for the community and for students. And so we have a lot of expertise, and so they undoubtedly will be available to you if you need, again, some information on counseling and obviously, the need for mental health counseling. But we do have a number of experts that I'm sure would be available and happy to talk to you.
In fact, I have that ask right now. So my ask is, if could you give me the data of which cities providing the services like mental behavioral health services to your local school district, using like your own levy and your own fund versus like going out to communities, right? Because I understand that like the bigger cities, so say like Bellevue or bigger school district, they could do that by contracting sort of like the local, but like for the city of Mercer Island and your school district, you do that sort of like in-house. And I know there's a number of you guys across the state doing that. Could you provide me that information? Because when we trying to considering like the funding and the grant process, I want to take all of these things into consideration.
Representative Tai, I am actually not aware of anyone else that has our model. That doesn't mean it exists, but we are really quite unique in that regard. So I'd be happy to follow up and get you connected to our YFS administrator and see what I can find out about, other similar services across the state. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to leave, this is low hanging fruit, but it's really important for me to mention this. The last legislative session and even the one prior to that were very robust. And please keep in mind that as you're adopting, new regulations and we have to implement them, that you take into consideration how much time we might need to do that. Much of what you do comes to us. So, a new HR policy or the Long-Term Care Act, land use planning, we felt that the timelines in the last session were too short and it was really, really hard on us. So we'd appreciate your consideration of longer implementation time or phased implementation. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and I'm happy to tell you as a smaller entity what the implication is in terms of the implementation. I'm happy to be a resource in that regard.
Yeah, I just to echo and follow up quickly, city manager, isn't there a city manager association? So
Yeah, there's a state association, and at least for my part, a very active King County city administration, city administrator group. And we get together and we work with our state associations on a variety of legislative matters. I will certainly reach out directly if I have a concern about an implementation timeline.
Yeah, and my point for asking that, Representative Tai, is that as you and others are considering enacting new laws, whatever, it makes a lot of sense to me for you to reach out to this association to see how it actually impacts cities in implementation that might result in changing the statute. And so I think it's good to get feedback as far as how it actually plays out in real life. And so anyway, good.
I really appreciate it, but just one little thing. Oddly, at least in the House, I can't speak to the Senate. Senator Wellman will probably inform you better than I could, because that's her playing ground. But in the House, like I believe that a lot of these. A lot of the things that related to local, and I get it, there's like the overarching other stuff too, but a lot of things that related to local, usually, and especially if it's come through as a bill, it landed in local government, right? And I think and I think by the time it get to the caucus and on the House floor, for me, who is not a member of local government, I make this huge assumption that a lot of these negotiation and conversation and timeline, whether it's emergency, like effective immediately versus affected in 2 years, affected in 5 years, has been in negotiation, whether during the time the bill is being written or drafted, and the time of public hearing, which when the bill is being considered. So I just wanted to throw out there, I think by the time it's get to my ears, I probably have like a bunch of other bills on the committees that I literally sit on. And so again, I would ask that you, in the space of helping me as well, if I couldn't reach out to you because number one, I don't know what's really is going on. I make that huge assumption that a lot of those negotiation has happened, and whether it go your way or it didn't go your way, the negotiation has happened. I mean, reality is that we function in consensus. We don't function in the case where, oh, because it didn't go my way, I'm going to be really mad at you. I'm going to jump up and down, yell at you, right? And then blame you for being a problem. That's not how we function in our system. And so if because for one reason or another, when the bill get to the floor, that you feel that you need me to understand deeper how it impact the city, could you please reach out to me as well? Because I can't possibly keep track of everything that's going through my different committees. And when it's get to me, I'm kind of like, right? So that is my ask of you.
Fair
No
enough.
problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I know we're over your time limit right now. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah,
and
appreciate
Look forward
the
to,
conversation.
yeah, look forward to having, the council looks forward to having ongoing dialogue with you, Representative Tai. So thank you so much.
Can I take a personal privilege to like thank you, Mayor Wong? You not only has been an amazing advocate for the city of Mercer Island, but absolutely a mentor for me. As far as some of the issues that I was not clear about, and you have been such a kind elected members of Mercer Island that helping me understanding, and our conversation has been rich for me in my service, and I hope that we continue our connection as you get to enjoy a little bit of time off in public service. So thank you for your service.
Thank you for those nice words, and yes, we'll stay in contact. So thank you so much. So,
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
okay.
All right.
Have a
Bye-bye.
happy holidays.
You
All
too.
You too. So that, do we adjourn the meeting? The meeting is now adjourned. It's 12:40. So thank you very much.